All right, so this is our lesson on expanding algebraic expressions. So what does expanding mean? This is when we use what is known as the distributive property. And that's something you should have learned last year in 6th grade. This means we multiply the number on the outside of the parentheses with everything on the inside. I often tell my students to remember this phrase: sign, solve, variable, and then repeat the process. So what does that phrase actually mean? Whenever you are expanding, ask yourself these questions. What are the signs? Will this give me a negative or a positive? When I multiply the numbers, what do I get? Is there a variable? If so, bring it down. And then finally repeat the process until the number has been distributed to everything inside the parentheses. So last year when you did the distributive property, I'm not sure if you did it with variables. I know you did it with whole numbers, and you were only doing it with positive numbers, and this year we have it with negative numbers also. So I'm going to look here. I have 2, 3x plus 6. So everything on the inside needs to be multiplied by 2. And I was taught to draw arrows, so I'm going to teach you to do the same. So I'm going to use that saying, sign, solve, variable, repeat, so you understand what that means. Now this one's easy because everything's positive, but what I would say is, okay, a positive times a positive is a positive. 2 times 3 is 6. My variable, I bring it down, and then I repeat my process. So that's sign, solve, variable, repeat. Okay, so my sign, positive times positive is positive. Solve, 2 times 6 is 12. Variable, there isn't one, so I'm done, and here's my answer. So let's try this again. So I would say sign, positive times positive is positive. Solve, 3 times 5 is 15. Variable is y, and I bring that down. And now I'm going to repeat. A positive times a negative is a negative. 3 times 8 is 24. There is no variable here, so I'm done. So now let's see what it looks like with negatives. So I have a negative 8 that I'm distributing. So I have negative times a positive is a negative. 8 times 2 is 16. I have the variable x. Okay, I'm going to do it again. A negative times a negative is a positive. 8 times 3 is 24. There's no variable, so I'm done. Let's try it one more time. So a negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 1, remember there's a 1 here, though we don't see it. So 5 times 1 is 5. Bring down my variable q. Okay, again, a negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 3/10, right? So 5 times 3 is 15. One number behind the decimal point, so 1.5. Variable, I don't have one, so I'm done. So this is expanding an algebraic expression. Okay, so we've got some more on the back. We're just going to do all of these examples together. Okay. So here we go. A negative times a positive is a negative. 7 times 2 is 14. Bring down my variable. Okay, a negative times a negative is a positive. 7 times, there's a 1 here, we just don't see it, remember. So 7 times 1 is 7. And I have a variable again of h, so I'm going to bring it down. Now let's try it again. This time we have a decimal on the outside. All right, so we have a positive times a positive is positive. 3/10 times 2. So all right, 3 times 2 is 6. Decimal point moves one place to the left. So maybe I want to write it like this, 0.6, 6/10. And then I bring down my variable x. A positive times a positive is a positive. 3/10 times 5. So 3 times 5 is 15. One number behind the decimal point, one place to the left would be 1 and 5/10. Okay, now, if you have to solve it to the side, so if on the side you have to do this, And then say, okay. Then do it like that by all means. But if you can do it in your head, that's not a bad thing either. Okay, here, 5/10. So a positive times a positive is a positive. 5/10 times 1 and 4/10. Okay, so this one might be a little bit more difficult to do it in our head. So I'm going to say 14 times 5. That's going to give me 20. 5 times 1 plus 2 is 7. I'm going to look. I have 2 numbers behind the decimal point, so 2 places to the left. Yeah, see, I didn't know that off the top of my head. It's 7/10. I'm going to bring down the y. Okay, a positive times a negative, that's a negative. 5/10 times 2 and 1/10. All right, so I'm going to say 21 times 5. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. I have 2 numbers behind the decimal point, so 2 places to the left is 1 and 500. This would be my answer expanded. So see, it's a lot more difficult when it's a decimal or a fraction in front of the number. Okay, here we go, whole number. That makes it a little easier. So a negative times a positive is a negative. 4 times my imaginary 1 is 4. Bring down my variable. A negative times a positive is a negative. And then I have 4 times 1/2. Okay, a quick way of being able to do this is saying 4 times the numerator divided by the denominator. So 4 times 1 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. So my answer is negative 4p minus 2. Okay, let's try it again. And so again, I have a fraction. So a positive times a positive is a positive. So then I'm going to say 2 times 3 is 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 2x. Now, if that's tricky for you, then you do this. 2/3 times 3 would be 3/1. Simplify before you multiply. You would get 2/1, which is the same thing as 2. I'm just trying to teach you how to do it mentally, if possible. So a positive times a negative is a negative. 2 times 9 is 18, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. So this becomes 2x minus 6. All right, let's try it again. A negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, 1/4 times 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. 3 is not divisible by 4, so I'm just going to leave it as a fraction, 3/4. And then x. A negative times a positive is a negative. 1 times 8 is 8, divided by 4 is 2. Right? Decimal again. So I have 5/10 times 4. A positive times a positive is a positive. 5 times 4 is 20. So if I had 20 and I move the decimal place 1 point to the left, so that's 2, bring down my variable. Okay? A positive times a positive is a positive. 5 times 12 I know gives me 60, but I got to move my decimal point 1 place to left, so that's going to become 6. So do what you can in your head. Again, if you can't do that in your head, then please do 12 times 5 and get 60, and then say there was 1 number behind the decimal point, so I have to move it 1 place to the left. There is no shame in having to write out the problem. There is no bonus points given for doing it in your head. Okay, a positive times a positive is a positive. 1/2 times 2. So 1 times 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, but I'm not going to write 1x because that's a naughty, so I'm going to write x. So a positive times a positive is a positive. 1 times 4 is 2. 1 times 4 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So x plus 2. Let's try it again. Okay, so I have 4/10. A positive times a positive is a positive. 4 times 2 is 8, but I got to move my decimal point 1 place to the left, so I'm going to have 8/10 x. A positive times a negative is a negative. So now I have 4 times 3 and 1/10. Okay, that one's a little harder for me. So I'm going to say 31 times 4. I get 124, and I have 2 numbers behind the decimal point. So I'm going to go 2 places to the left. So 1 and 24 hundredths. Last one. I have a negative times a positive, which is a negative. I have 14 times 7. I can't do that in my head, so I'm going to do it over here. 14 times 7, that's 98. And I look, I have one number behind the decimal point, so that's going to give me 9.8. So 9 and 8 tenths, then my variable. Then my sign, a negative times a negative is a positive. Solve 7 times 28. Okay, I don't know that one. So 28 times 7. So 8 times 7 is 56. 7 times 2 is 14. Plus 5 is 19. I had 2 numbers behind the decimal point, so I'm going to go 2 places to the left. So I get 1 and 96 hundredths. And there was no variable, so I'm done. So again, use that sign, solve, variable, repeat, so that you're able to expand these successfully. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to actually combine the two. We're going to expand, and then we're going to simplify. So there's going to be lots of steps that are happening in the next step of this. So there is a practice for you to do in Schoology. Now that these notes are done, please complete that practice. If you need to watch this video again, please do.